Nick. On the Lord, hear it. Nick. On the Ricky Ticky Love while living number one Nickelodeon. Nick. Nickelodeon. Bom, 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 Nickelodeon. Bom, 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 Nickelodeon. Aren't you glad you got your Nickelodeon?
Is your home a Nickelodeon home?
The preceding editorial message does not necessarily represent the family of fine Nickelodeon products and services.
Yes, it does!
Nickelodeon, the first and only network for kids.
On the Ricky Dicky Love while living number one Nickelodeon.
Welcome to Splat Attack, a 90s podcast honoring the slime-filled past. I am here with our round table of co-hosts.
I'm your oozy newsy cat.
I'm your professional gack splatter, Manny.
I'm your flow man, Jordy.
And I, of course, am your slime sultan, Alex. And, guys...
Yeah?
Yeah, what do you want?
I'm a bit concerned because we have a big guest coming today.
Why are you concerned? That's awesome.
Because the studio is a wreck thanks to you two.
So reverse the polarity of the neutron flow and push the big jolly red candy-like button and...
I've got to rebuild the wall that Ren broke down because of how angry he got.
Aye, co-captain. Just remember, he could be very temperamental. Afterwards, let's check out some classic Nickelodeon. Oh, look what he did. He got into the orange paint and made footprints all over the floor. Hey, that wasn't me. That was Ren.
Well, messy creativity is on brand with 90s Nickelodeon, so...
You're welcome.
Looks like we may need some help to clean up and get you jokesters back in line. So I know exactly who I can get to help.
A repairman, man?
No. It's actually my very dear friend, Kylie. Kylie, would you help give me a hand, please?
Hey, guys. Wow, Alex, you weren't kidding when you said this place needed a big help.
Mm-hmm.
We can clean up before Geraldine gets here.
Mm-hmm.
Geraldine?
Laybourne?
The boss lady?
Yep. Joining us today is the former CEO of Nickelodeon, Miss Geraldine Laybourne. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh man, we're so excited. We're all so excited about this.
I can't believe it. This is amazing.
I'm nerding out right now. This is really cool.
So what we tried to do as far as coming up with questions, because we have more questions than we have time, which is a great problem. But what we did was we tried to come up with questions that we hope you haven't been asked a lot, because you've been on several magazines and newspapers and interviews and podcasts where you had been sharing your story, and it's fantastic. So hopefully some of these aren't repeats, but we tried to find questions that delve more into Nickelodeon's history that you were a part of, that hopefully you weren't asked as often. But a question that I know you've been asked, but we do want to touch on this a little bit since probably our listeners haven't heard this. How did you make the transition from teaching to television?
Well, I was a different kind of teacher. I was teaching kids how to make movies, and I was following in my husband's footsteps. He was a pioneer in the field. And, I was fascinated with media and kids and what kids could embraced. And I felt like everybody looked down at kids, and in that day and age before we came around, and they, it was limited animation. There wasn't anything on TV at the time that seemed great. I had little kids. I had a research organization that tested independent film with kids. And when I say independent film, so the look of Nickelodeon was created by not animation factories, but individual people who had, crazy stuff going on in their heads. One of our first creative people, Eli Noyes, God bless him, just passed away, but he was one of the freshest creative minds I've ever seen. And so while I was doing this research with kids to see, can't we do something more interesting? I wrote a couple of books with a partner, one called Films Kids Like, and the other What to Do When the Lights Go On. So I wasn't really ever a traditional teacher, though I did get a master's in traditional education. And Eli and I and my husband started a small production company called Early Bird Specials. And the idea was we were going to market the work of independent filmmakers. There was this whole community in New York City. And I was, there's a lot about me that you probably should know. I'm a second child. I was born to rebel. I didn't like going where everybody else was going. And I thought New York had a lot to offer kids. And I liked the creative friends we had. And so we started this company, and our first client was Nickelodeon. And that's how I made the transition.
What was the criteria for some of the shows that you were looking to greenlight for the network?
Well, at first, we had no money. You know that, right? We had absolutely no money. We had less money to program an entire network than one episode of a Hollywood show. It was just really, so in the beginning, we were looking for ideas that felt fresh and that weren't being seen other places, but we had lots of criteria. One was that it shouldn't be a complete waste of time. Nickelodeon was a lot of fun, but there was always something behind the scenes. Like, I don't know if you guys ever saw You Can't Do That on Television.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
That was one of our first, and that taught us a lot because we were on the side of kids, and we knew that it's tough being a kid. In the 1980s, women were going to work in force in large numbers. Divorce numbers were really high, and kids were like kind of pushed to hurry up and grow up and get through it. And we thought kids deserved childhood. And so, we had real purpose. How do you make a kid feel good about being a kid? I know that sounds silly, but there's this great guy. Have you had Fred Seibert on your show yet?
We haven't, not yet.
Okay, well, Fred was an amazing influence on the early days of Nickelodeon. And he also was a fan of the independent film community. So, our criteria was, let's have everyday kids. Let's not have Hollywood stars. Let's not have skinny blondes. Let's try to have kids that look like everyday kids. And You Can't Do That on Television, the kids were from Ottawa, Canada, and if they started acting bratty, we started sliming them so that they would, not get too full of themselves. But reverse psychology was fantastic to just get kids to think about, why their parents would want them to drink orange juice instead of Coca-Cola. And there's always a mission. With little kids, we were trying to help with their social emotional learning. And we actually did research to see whether we had any impact, whether we could teach kids about sharing, or whether kids could learn to be kind. And but it was always fun. It was always fun. Nick News was about how do we make kids understand the world.
You have a right to know what's going on in the world. You have Nick News.
This week, we'll take a look at a girl who took on a giant company over the way they portrayed women. Also, he's 7'1", weighs 303 pounds, wears a size 20 shoe, and is the hottest player in the NBA. Meet the Shaq.
This and more on this week's edition of Nick News.
If you want to know, watch.
Watch Nick News tonight at 8/7 Central on the only network for you, Nickelodeon.
And here's something that I just am so crazy about. Linda Ellerby. I don't know if you guys ever watched Nick News, but
every show.
Absolutely.
I would always say to Linda, why are we making this show? And she would say, well, we want kids to feel like they're part of the world and they understand what things mean. And, we're never breaking news. We just want to give them a good orientation so they don't feel left out. I said, no. The reason we're doing Nick News is to raise up a better caliber of candidate. So I figured out that Pete Buttigieg was the first candidate who could for president, who could possibly have grown up on Nickelodeon. And I got a chance to meet him. And I went up to him. I didn't tell him anything about who I was. And I said, by the way, Mayor Pete, did you ever watch Nickelodeon? Did you ever watch Nick News? Oh my God, I loved Linda Ellerby. I loved Nick News. And so I thought,
wow,
thank you so much. Now I know when I die, I'm going to heaven because we accomplished that.
Wow.
That's so cool.
Look, I'm a product of that. I got into politics at a very young age, and I think a lot of it stemmed from Nick News and Kids Pick the President.
Oh, fantastic. Are you in politics now?
No, but I do. I teach at a university. Well, I help at a university. So I'm around younger people, which is always nice to try and impart things as you go along.
Well, I encourage you to run for office and let me know when you're going to run.
Will do.
This is probably going to be a tough one, but I'm just going to ask anyway. What one show are you most proud of under your tenure at Nickelodeon?
In a way, I would say Doug.
Do you sometimes feel like a lefty in a right-handed world? Do you ever want to tell a girl you like her, but lose your nerve? Do you like to daydream, doodle, eat lots of banana pudding? Are you 11 and a half? Have a dog named Pork Chop? Look like this? Well, then you must be Doug. Doug's the new cartoon kid coming to Nickelodeon, so watch for him. World premiere August 11th.
Doug was a full circle for me. Nickelodeon had one show when I went to work at Nickelodeon. It was called Pinwheel.
Mm-hmm.
And Doug was one of the puppeteers on Pinwheel.
Mm-hmm.
And just Jim Jenkins is one of the nicest human beings ever. And he kept in touch with us, but we weren't really doing anything with him. And about 10 years into running it, he came to me. He had a book called Doug that he had written, and he had spent time animating at being an animator at Sesame Street. And you know what? We fell in love with the character, who was Jim Jenkins completely. And it was such a big deal for us to do those 3 shows. Our first animation was Rugrats, Doug, and Ren and Stimpy. And we were trying to prove that if you could find creative people who lived and breathed their characters, sort of the way Jim Henson did with his Muppets, that we could do better, we could create better animation for kids. And that's what happened. But because Jim just had this goal of doing a show for us, that he just kept working his way, and we helped him start an animation company. And you know, so I have a very tender spot about that. And also, I would say Clarissa Explains It All.
Clarissa Explains.
Me, Clarissa. First of all, I can deal with just about anything. Furbies, worms, Mom's tofu sundaes. Even when I panic, it's cool panic. May I be excused to freak out? I'm not allowed to drive until I'm old enough to get my license. Parents are such sticklers for the law. And the 95,000 Christmas cards? Well, I can explain.
Clarissa Explains It All. Every Sunday at 6:30, 5:30 Central.
On Nickelodeon.
It was such a rule-breaking show. We were trying to prove that you could create a show with a girl at the center that boys would like. And there was no difference between boys and girls and their viewership of Clarissa. Everybody liked Clarissa.
Did you see yourself as Clarissa by any chance?
No, but well, now that you're saying that, there was
there was a little
bit of a disruptor. Just a bit.
The thing is, I always had an easy time having friends that were guys, and that was what made her so special. Was she had this guy friend who just was her buddy, and so in a way, I related to her.
Yeah, we've had the great pleasure to have both Jim Jenkins and Mitchell Kriegman on the show, and they're fantastic people. So, and yes, when you say that Jim is the sweetest person, yes, wholeheartedly agree. Amazing person. Kylie, what question would you like to ask?
Sure. So number one, I just want to say thank you, because for me, it was such a huge thing learning after my days of Nickelodeon that there was a woman at the head while all of that was happening. That was a big thing for me. To go along with that, you've done so much, you've achieved so many things. Specifically during your tenure at Nickelodeon, was there a moment that you realized you were making history? Like it was the moment that it hit how significant it was, what you were achieving?
I don't think I fully realized it until I left. I mean, I loved every minute at Nickelodeon. I really did. And I loved the people I got to work with. And it was, but I lived in the world. I wasn't ever out of it. I was just in it and delighted. And, because I started as a teacher, I started as a open classroom teacher, a individual instruction teacher whose job was to figure out what was great about each one of my students. And that turned out to be a pretty darn good way to run a company and to figure out what was really great about these folks. And it just gave me great joy every time Scott Webb or Jeffrey Darby or Debbie Beacey or Ann Sweeney or, Herb Scannell, when they had a success, it was like fantastic. But right before I left, we did a survey, and 96% of the kids said they thought we understood them. And that was mind-blowing to me. And I unfortunately made a joke that the other 4% didn't understand the question. But I didn't really until I was out of Nickelodeon and starting to see the strength of Nickelodeon. I mean, when I left, we had 52% of all kid TV viewing. We had the advantage of being the first, and for a very long time, the only. And even though we, started out poor, we managed to make enough money that we could produce original shows. And I don't know. I don't think I fully understood until I left.
You can definitely tell the impact that you made. So I'm sure you were definitely proud of that. Just looking back at Nickelodeon and just be like, wow, that's unbelievable.
Not only with kids, like my parents would sit down and watch the shows with me. And just like me, my parents had favorites. So my mom was not a Ren and Stimpy person. That was my dad. My dad would sit and watch, Ren and Stimpy, Angry Beavers, Hey Arnold, all of that with me. And mom would be there for all of that. And a lot of the more sketch comedy shows. And it was something that not only connected us with each other's children, but it also connected me with my parents, which I think was such a good thing. So it wasn't only entertaining for kids, it was entertaining for the adults too.
That time period, and you had actually referenced this when we first got on the call, but then the network as a whole really helped give us a voice, help us realize that we had a voice that we never had really thought about before, having been through that, and really struggled with self-image when I was a kid. And a lot of my self-worth started because of some of the seeds that Nickelodeon ended up planting. Not to say that my family and friends didn't, but it was reaffirmed through the things that I learned by watching, ironically, through watching television. But no, I'm not throwing shade. Please, all of you who are listening, I'm not throwing shade at any other CEOs. But being a viewer for a long time, I just thought, as Nickelodeon was changing with the times, I thought it was just because I was growing up and I was aging out of kids programming and that kind of thing, which it partially was true. But then whenever I got back into Nickelodeon again as an adult and was wanting to revisit my childhood, and then was thinking about, I want to see what else Nickelodeon has done that I missed, and it just felt different. It felt like Nickelodeon had lost that connection with kids. And I am curious, or I got curious, when did this changing of the guard start to take place? And it was right around the time that I thought it was after you had left. And I'm a firm believer in you lead by example. And my next question for you is, what was the example that you wanted set for your team to follow?
There are lots of things I wanted my team to follow. One of them was to honor creative people, and if we went forward with a show, I wanted the creator of the show to be proud of the show, and that I didn't want my executives to manhandle creative people. My whole family is creative. So my son is a showrunner. My daughter is a young adult novelist and has been an actor. And so I honor my audience and I honor the creative people. And I don't honor I don't honor executives who want their way. In fact, when I wasn't in charge of Nickelodeon when I went there. It took 3 years for me to be in charge, and I learned a tremendous amount during that time. But during the first 3 years, all the creative work was farmed out to Hollywood producers and old friends of the person running Nickelodeon. And I just felt that was wrong, that we needed to be more egalitarian and we needed to be open to fresh ideas. But I was afraid that my young staff would not be good at supervising unless they had made stuff. So for a year, I wouldn't let us hire anybody else to do stuff. We had to make stuff. And that was the year we made Double Dare.
Why Double Dare is for kids only. Reason number 1, the questions. Double Dare asks questions about only things that kids are experts in.
What is Batman's real name?
Reason number 2, the prizes. Double Dare has got what you want. What would an adult do with a BMX bike? Reason number 3, the obstacle course. Double Dare dares kids to run over, under, and through 8 outrageous obstacles. An adult would look pretty silly trying to tackle this course. Double Dare, the game show for kids only. Weekdays, only on Nickelodeon.
The story of Double Dare and how it came about, the receptionist, Dee LaDuke at Nickelodeon, had this idea for playing Double Dare. And so everybody had to play Double Dare in the office at, some point in their day. Everybody had to participate. But Dee and 2 on-air promotion producers, I think Bob Mittenthal and Mike Klinghoffer and Jeffrey Darby, our executive producer, all teamed up to do this show. And it was such a homemade show. They were testing the physical challenges in our basement of our house in New Jersey. And we went through thousands of hosts. And at one point, they tried to have my husband try out for the host. And it's like, no, that is the stupidest idea I ever heard. And we're in deep trouble. This is never going to work. And so in the last minute, like a week before the show started to tape in Philadelphia, we found Mark Summers, and he was absolutely spectacular. But the first day that we went to tape, I mean, I did have a lot of opinions about things, like be sure on the obstacle course to test everything beforehand so that it's possible for a kid to win. It's very much about kids' rights, and we have to make sure girls can win and boys can win, and everything has to be pre-tested. And we get there, and it's such a fantastic set. It's like you cannot believe anybody has put that much effort into doing a show for kids. And the kids walk into the studio and they gasp and they say curse words, holy blank, and they're just like astonished that this set is there. So we go to tape, and the first thing that happens is in the obstacle course, they have a flag in a bag of feathers, and the kid cannot find the flag. And so there are feathers now all over the whole studio. And we have to do 4 shows a day to make our budget. So I am completely terrified. They get the feathers back in the bag. They put a bunch of flags in so that it's sure they'll get the thing. And then the cameraman falls backwards into a vat of French toast. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is a disaster. This is never going to work. And I go back. We were shooting in Philadelphia, and I go back on the train with Debbie Beastie, And she said, don't worry. Don't you worry. Jeffrey will have this figured out by Monday. And he did. And these guys just nobody ever let their side down. They just never let their side down because we were doing something. We loved kids and we were doing something for kids. And Double Dare went on the air and it had a 0.8 rating. And by Thursday, it had a 1.8. And by the next week, it had a 5.6, which was astronomical in cable. And it just hit the button. But it was because it was homemade. You know, it was a whole bunch of young adults who worked at Nickelodeon who could remember their childhood and what was sheer delight. And, you know, we worked on it for a good period of time. We bet on it and it was gigantic. That was our first success.
Just charming how practical it was, how it looked like you could do it yourself. And that's just something charming about it.
And the other thing was we wanted kids to really engage with us. So what was great about Double Dare was we'd get letters from all over the country where parents were thanking us or saying, geez, you know, I've had to set up the birthday party obstacle course every year for every kid. Or, you know, they would ask trivia questions at breakfast, but everybody was making it their own.
How do I want to say this? I guess the adults in children's programming can either be portrayed as like very supportive or on the opposite end of the spectrum where, you know, adults are dumb or don't know anything. In trying to craft a network with programming made for kids and having kids at the forefront, were you aware of how kids viewed adults, or what message did you want to convey about kids and adults, I guess, working together, family dynamics, things of that nature?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Because if I were doing Nickelodeon today, I would do it very differently from the way we did it in the 80s and 90s, because the world has changed so much. But in those days, we were really concerned about how do we get kids to feel good about themselves. And the psychology in You Can't Do That on Television, the adults were, you know, almost like cartoon characters. They were, you know, the principal would lock the kids in the dungeon, and, you know, and we weren't really making fun of adults. We were making fun of bad behavior on the part of adults.
Here at Nick, we've been getting a lot of complaints from adults about You Can't Do That on Television. We listened, and you know what? We're gonna clean up our act. From now on, we solemnly swear to wash before every meal, eat everything on our plate, follow our parents' example, keep the bathroom clean, and study the classics like You Can't Do That on Television. Every day, only on Nickelodeon.
We were saying to the kids, hey, we know that adults can be unfair. And your principal can be unfair. You feel like this is the world you're living in. So I think, you know, some people were a little bit critical of that, but our concern was, how do you feel after you've watched Nickelodeon? Can you, we tried everything. We did one show that was, you know, called Spread Your Wings, that was showing these excellent children who could do these fabulous things. And when we watched kids watching it, kids were devastated, like, oh God, now I can never play the guitar because I'll never play it that well, or I'll never be able to do that. So we were keenly aware that we wanted kids to go away from Nickelodeon feeling good about themselves. And it was very much in the spirit of Fred Rogers. which is we like you just the way you are. We're not really trying to change you. And we weren't really focused on parents. I mean, we thought Nick at Night was going to work because parents were nostalgic for Mr. Ed and these different shows, and that would be a good bonding experience. And Snick, with all that, we thought that also would be interesting for kids and parents. But to begin with, honestly, we were not so worried about the relationships between kids and their parents. Today, I would do it differently because I think parents have a much more I don't know how to describe this, but they're much more involved in their kids' lives. And I think, giving really fun things for families to watch together would be a fantastic thing to do.
Yeah. I noticed the adults in Nickelodeon shows, just the portrayals of adults ran the gamut, really. But some of my favorite programs were like Clarissa, Space Cases, or shows where the kids were, not necessarily the high achievers or the normal ones who fit in. There was just something offbeat about them, but it was celebrated. And those shows often had parents or adults that were supportive. Like Clarissa's parents were very supportive of her. They were ex-hippies, they and even if adults in the programs weren't aware of things or didn't understand, there was always that underlying supportive family dynamic, I guess, even in shows where a lot of the kids, sort of formed their own like family of their own choosing almost. It was just a very tight-knit unit. Those are my favorite shows to watch. And much like Kylie mentioned earlier, some of the shows that were like All That was kind of like Saturday Night Live for kids, and Are You Afraid of the Dark was kind of like Twilight Zone for kids. Space Cases was Star Trek for kids. So programs where you could bridge that gap between the parents and the kids and you could watch together, those I think were definitely my favorite looking back now.
I think it was also really beautiful. I think Nickelodeon, in my mind at least, was the first place that you saw unconventional families. Like Hey Arnold lived with his grandparents. Like we got even more exposure to other situations that we were not familiar with in such a positive way.
I love your take. I completely agree.
Yeah.
Before I ask the next question, I want to say the show that I really love is Wienerville. And that was definitely a show that connected myself with my parents as well, whether it being the vintage cartoons or the classic slapstick style, and especially the homemade look. I just love how artistic it was. And that's definitely something that connected me as well.
I mean, one of the things that when I got a chance to run Nickelodeon, it was like, you know what? We can do this differently. We have to do this differently because we don't have enough money to do it like everybody else. We can't follow conventional ways. And let's introduce kids to opera. I don't know if you remember our IDs that had opera in them.
Yeah, the opera one where the glasses broke.
Yeah. One of my favorite spots was Inside Out Boy. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
He swung over the bar and became Inside Out Boy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're just Pete and Pete.
I love Pete and Pete.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Every morning when we go out to face the 1,440 minutes that make up our day, it's nice to know that Artie, the strongest man in the world, is out there somewhere looking after us.
Nickelodeon presents The Adventures of Pete and Pete, starring Pete, Pete's brother Pete, and me, Ellen. Today's adventure...
Artie, the strongest man in the world!
Will McRobb and I'm blanking on the name. I'll think of it in a second.
Chris
These-
Riccardi.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. These guys just came up with these characters, and it's like, first we did spots, and then it was like, you know what, just see what you can do. And it was just so crazily fresh and insane and entertaining. But I just don't think they just gave it everything. And so I appreciate the fact that we were not following anybody's guidelines for what kids are supposed to like.
That was what was so attractive about it. It was the anti-Disney. And it's like, oh my God, this is great.
Well, and everything was different. Like, it wasn't just that cookie cutter thing. And it's like, I feel like I'm the odd one out. I was never into Pete and Pete, but I think looking back, it's just because I just didn't connect with it. But like, it was never a problem. But I knew there were also 10 other shows that I would watch religiously. Like, everybody could connect with something different because nothing looked the same.
And that was, I used to have a little, Jeffrey Darby put this on my door. It was a news clipping that said, if it ain't broke, fix it anyway. And the big boss of Viacom, Sumner Redstone, would come up to my office and he'd see the sign and he'd say, no, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I would say, Sumner, if you think that's how we operate, we would never be successful if we didn't keep on fixing it. And that's what happens in TV, where they just keep doing things that look like the last thing they did. And that was really key to, okay, we figured out how to do game shows. Let's move on. Let's tackle animation. Well, hey, do you think we could pull off a sketch show? And it just was, we just wanted to give kids a full array. If you're going to have a whole channel, it should really feel full of different things. And guts.
Do you have it? Do you have it? Do you have it? It takes a certain kind of person to get the body working to the level of precision that's needed to be risen to the top. Do you have it? It takes a certain kind of something to keep the heart pumping, something everybody needs to achieve to succeed. You'll need a lot. Do you have it? Do you have it?
I was hung in one of those things about what is it called, I don't know, harness. I was hung in a harness at a cable show, and I had to dunk basketballs from this harness, and I've had to swim through French toast on Double Dare, and God, they've slimed me, what I wouldn't have done for that network.
So great. Manny, what was the question that you were going to ask, buddy?
The question was sort of later on in the landscape of things. What was it about the show All That changed the landscape of the network?
Well, I was only there for the very beginning of All That. So I think All That started in 94, and I left at the end of 95. And I think that, some of the principles that we had, like, let's really be inclusive when we select our producers. And I think that Nickelodeon got reliant on a couple of producers. And I think there's a lot of discussion now about all of that, which is heartbreaking.
Kylie. Well, what would you like to ask, dear?
Sure. So something I always dreamed of, but I never got to achieve. What was your motivation for starting Nick Takes Over Your School? Like where did you get there? How were the experiences? Did you seem to have good feedback? Every time I entered, but honestly, I don't think you would have wanted to go to Southern Indiana.
Oh, I think we did want to come to you.
Yeah.
Join Clarissa, Mark Summers, Chris Cross, and the students of Wilder Elementary for next Saturday night, all Snick Long.
You know, we did so many crazy things. As we got bigger and bigger, I was not so involved in Nick Takes Over Your School. I was more involved in the initial Nickelodeon toy run.
This is Brittany, and when she won Nickelodeon's 12th annual Super Toy Run sweepstakes, she had just one thing to say. And make way they did, because once she got behind the wheel of her Super Toy Run Cartmobile, there was no stopping her.
It's party time.
The crowd went wild as she ran through her local Toys R Us store for 5 whole minutes, snagging and bagging anything she wanted.
We need to keep the cash register, ma'am.
Well, almost anything. And when it was all over, Brittany took home over $9,000 in toys. She won the video games, she won the dolls, she won the talking computers.
Mike!
What?
You forgot all this stuff.
Oh, of course, the motorized car she wanted. The bikes for her whole family. What do you say, Brittany?
There's only one Nickelodeon Super Toy.
And it only takes one entry to win. Nickelodeon Super Toy Run Sweepstakes is sponsored by Toys R Us and the place where only kids win.
Nickelodeon.
That was, that was very exciting. But, we just kept trying to get kids to feel like they could bring Nickelodeon to their school. They could get to be on one of our game shows. They could, how about Stickly?
Thank you, Mark. Get a load of my new set. I am Stickly, and Nick in the afternoon is back. Simmer down. Let's hear it for Nicktoons. You pick. I can't hear you. Stumpstick, straight from you. And Holly's back. Yeah, Holly. Okay, God. What? You got that on film? I didn't think anyone was here.
Catch Stick on Nick in the afternoon, starting tomorrow at 3, 2 Central, right here on Nick.
I hope no one ever sees this. Sheesh.
We had this challenge of how can we have a different kind of host in the afternoon? And Aggie Fodor and Scott Webb. Aggie Fodor was probably, 23 years old when she came up with this. And they come into my office and they say they figured out who's going to be the host of the afternoon, and it's a popsicle stick. Okay? You have to have a large tolerance for ambiguity to say, that sounds fantastic. But honestly, that was one of my favorite things, because Stick was so lonely and so sad. And the wonderful thing is that thousands and thousands of kids sent in popsicle friends for Stick. And we had a whole room at our office for Stickly's bride and his baby and his friends and his set. And that to me is interactivity. That was the fact that kids were, trying to help Stick, just really trying to help him feel loved.
I'm getting emotional over a popsicle stick right now. I still remember the jingles. Right to me, Stickly, P.O. Box 963, New York City, New York State.
Oh my God.
101.
I said a popsicle stick friend.
I tried to make them too. I just never knew what the nose was made out of. So yeah. If I mind to name drop it for a second, David Jordan designed that too, and he's totally a 100% artistic dude, and he's fantastic for doing that, along with a bunch of other things too.
it was so much fun because we had nobody telling us what to do. And we made it great for kids, and parents loved us, and it was it just was transcendent. And we we did we did everything we could to really represent kids, and kids picked the president.
This election year, you'll probably hear a lot of politicians yakety-yakking on about what they think is important. Well, now Nick wants you to let them know what you think. Hi, I'm Melissa Joan Hart with Nickelodeon's Kids Pick the President campaign. What issues matter to you? What should the candidates be talking about? What would you do if you were president? We want to know. Write it all down and send it to Kids Pick the President, P.O. Box 4917, Orlando, Florida 32802. We'll make your opinions known here on Nick and in Washington. You deserve to be heard. So let Nickelodeon and America know what kids want. Get involved with Nickelodeon's Kids Pick the President campaign and voice your choice on Nick.
We tried to give a voice. The Kids Bill of Rights. Have you featured that?
I've not featured it yet, no, but I've heard of it.
I have a copy of the Kids Bill of Rights. And one day, Muhammad Ali came to my office and he signed the Kids Bill of Rights.
I do have one more question I want to ask, because I know we only had you for about an hour, but and apologies to everybody who submitted questions. I know we couldn't get to everything, but there is one thing about Nickelodeon that I don't think gets a lot of discussion, and I'd like to get your take on how well it worked for Nickelodeon, but The Big Help.
Read stories to a blind person. Volunteer at a soup kitchen.
Teach someone how to swim.
Watch your younger brother, even if he's a pain.
When Nickelodeon asked kids for ways to help, the response was big. You sent in thousands and thousands of great ideas.
Give old toys to a children's hospital. Start a babysitting club.
So Nick made a list, a really big list of your ideas to kick off something even bigger. It's called The Big Help. It's about kids getting together to help make a big difference.
Make friends with someone who's lonely.
Start an ecology club.
Whether you're helping other people, animals, the environment, or the place where you live, Nick knows kids can help in a big way. So this October, Nick's bringing you the first ever Big Help-a-thon. It's your chance to join kids everywhere in pledging your time to help. So keep watching the only network for you. And thanks for all your help.
I loved what The Big Help stood for. Because where I went to school, people just watched it and then they wouldn't really do anything else. What kind of feedback did you get from people, especially from kids, regarding The Big Help, and how successful do you think it was?
Well, I was pretty astonished. We didn't have a perfect way of measuring how much kids actually did, but we asked them to phone in how many hours they would volunteer. And the first year that we did it, we got 100 million hours pledged. And there were lots of reasons we did The Big Help. Number one, we believed that kids actually do love to help. And number two, we were sick and tired of people accusing kids of being selfish, materialistic, non-caring people. And so, honestly, the main reason we did The Big Help to begin with was to blow that apart. And we got on ABC News with Peter Jennings to announce what happened. And that was huge, because we're standing up for kids. Guess what, guys? They want to help. Let them help. But it was the whole the whole network, the whole year before we did the first telethon, was devoted to showing different kids helping around the country so that kids had ideas about what they could do. But it was in defense of kids. And I thought it was magnificent. And I think when they did it for years after I left, but then they switched to another cause. And, you know, I don't think they ever got traction the way we did with the Big Help. But I honestly don't know whether those kids did fulfill exactly the number of the hours, but they sure had people defending them.
That's good.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And that kind of mentality, because I teach kids also, and that kind of mentality is what I've been not only trying to help them grow and mature and understand themselves, but also pour into your world also. And that's very much a mindset that I resonate with. So we interrupt this episode to bring you some breaking news by Stig Stickley. Oh, simmer down. We received a message from former co-host Brett Wilson. Oh, been a long time since we've heard from him. He has a special message for Geraldine Laybourne and the Splat Attack crew. Oh, can't wait to hear this.
Hey, Splat Attack crew. Brett here, chiming in with a video message because I felt I couldn't miss the 45th anniversary of Nickelodeon. I mean, wow, 45 years. Where does the time go? Oh, man. Yeah, leave it at that. I just want to congratulate everyone on making it this far with the podcast, with the TV channel, keeping it alive through the 90s Nickelodeon communities on social media. Everyone's doing such a great job of expressing their passion and remembering all these shows and memories and sharing it with one another. That's truly heartwarming to see. Even all these years after, this particular era of Nickelodeon happens, the golden years. And, even outside of those, it still was a great channel, even if it was finding its footing in other ways. I mean, thanks to Nickelodeon, we have Nickelodeon Studios, which was a memorable, timeless experience at Universal Studios where people got to get slimed and see all the shows up above in the rafters as they're filming them, like Clarissa Explains It All, Guts and Legends, and all the other ones that they filmed live on sound stages in, I think, Soundstage 19, somewhere around there. We also have, like, GAC and all the other Nickelodeon toys, as you've seen in Collector's Corner from Russ, Jordy, Carl. I mean, anyone who collects Nickelodeon memorabilia online, it's just proof how cool and how inventive and imaginative and ever evolving the brand is whenever it latches itself onto something so that kids can enjoy and experience that philosophy of Nick is kids. Nick is exciting. Nick respects young budding minds with great ideas and treats them with the respect they deserve. And I feel that's something that's really missing from TV channels these days. It seems like everything's just becoming so homogenized. It's hard to tell them apart. But back then, when we were coming of age as Nickelodeon fans, we felt their clear vision front and center in our faces whenever we tuned into the TV. And it was just an amazing experience to grow up with it and internalize all the lessons and all the friendships and all the stories that came along with all these shows that we watched, from like Double Dare to Hey Arnold, which is particularly in Geraldine Laybourne's era when she worked at Nickelodeon, which, by the way, so happy you can make it to the episode. I'm sorry I couldn't be there to meet you in person, Geraldine, but I want to express my gratitude for having you just be such a major pivotal part in Nickelodeon's success throughout the years. So thank you for having a clear vision. Thank you for being a leading, strong female leader in an industry that's primarily male dominated with somewhat stale ideas. And thank you for looking to kids as people who deserve to have entertainment made for them and treat them with respect and help nurture their ideas so that we can have future generations take care of the world and entertain each other in ways that we were entertained and taken care of too. So much nostalgia, so many good memories, and slime all in between. Before this message gets too long, because I could gush on and on like the slime guys are from Nickelodeon Studios, if I take too much time. I just want to thank you all for keeping the torch alive, for creating so many memorable moments within Nickelodeon's history that we can all share and appreciate on social media, even in person when we come across Nick kids in the wild. And let's continue to carry the torch as long as we can. I mean, that's why we started Splat Attack in the first place, to honor this slime-filled past that has been paved and built and curated with love and care for over 4.5 decades. So let's continue to make it great in the years to come and embody that spirit that we still value since we first turned on the TV as kids. All right, I think I'm gonna head out before this video message gets a little bit too long. It's great to see you all again, Alex, Kat, Manny, Jordy, and hopefully we'll cross paths again. This is your former Gakoid signing out. Splat you later.
Thanks, Brett. It was good to hear from you again. Now, back to the episode. Does Gerry have to leave? Can't she stay a little longer? Thank you again so much for taking the time to be here. It's, like I said earlier, it's an honor, and it truly is. And we've had so many people who've worked with Nickelodeon who've come here and share their stories, and almost every single one of them have all said, and Gerry Laybourne is just wonderful. And we actually spoke with Scott Barber, who created the Orange Years, and I had asked him, what is she like, and he said, "Oh man, she's wonderful." Everybody has said how wonderful you are, and you add this to it, add us to that, because it's been wonderful. So thank you so much.
I'll
Thank
remember this
you.
forever. Seriously, thank you.
Thank
Thank you for wonderful childhood
I
memories.
must say, I love the fact that you all had different favorites, and I'm not quite sure about Wienerville, but I'm sure that you have your reasons for liking that best.
Absolutely. All the creativity. I just love it.
Okay, take care.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, Slimesters, that was we are all on cloud 9 after talking with Geraldine for the last hour, and unfortunately Jordy wasn't able to be with part of the interview, well, with the whole interview, but we still have quite a bit more of the episode to talk about, because this whole thing is about the 45th anniversary of Nickelodeon, and there's still so much to talk about. So we're going to cut to a commercial break real quick and see what all is going on in the world of Splat Attack, and we'll be back with more to celebrate for Nickelodeon. So stick around, we'll be back.
Stay tuned for more Nickelodeon.
Be sure to like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and leave us a review.
If you guys are enjoying this episode and you would like to see more Splat Attack, head over to our Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Splat Attack to get early access to our upcoming episodes, as well as live streams twice a month, some bonus content just for our Gakoids, along with a plethora of other good stuff. So head over to patreon.com/Splat Attack. Do you know what looks good on a t-shirt? Slime. Especially slime on the Nickelodeon blimp, which we have on a shirt over on our Bonfire page. Go to bonfire.com/store/Splat Attack store with hyphens in between to get all of your sweet Splat Attack merch. We have original content as well as some tributes to the shows that we know and loved as a kid, like Double Dare, since we've referenced that a few times. So go to bonfire.com/store/Splat Attack store with hyphens in between.
Tune in next time, Slimesters, as we begin to uncover the mystery that requires some assistance from the original cast. That's right, we're doing an episode review on Shelby Woo episodes, Hot Seats Part 1 and 2, Uno y Dos. The real mystery is who all will be attending. You will only find out on the next episode of Splat Attack. See you there for the mystery.
Back to more Nickelodeon.
All right, so welcome back, everybody. I've started to wipe tears away, so I should be good now. But I wanted to ask all of you guys because I know we've spoken a little bit with Kylie when we've had her on before, but we'll start with you. What were some of your favorite shows in the tenure of Nickelodeon that you used to watch?
Um, I was big on Nick animation. So Rugrats, Hey Arnold, Doug were staples. Um, really any Nickelodeon animation was on in my house all the time, and both of my parents would they had their favorites. My mom steered away from the crude humor, so that was always dad shows, but um I also just latched on to all that. Like my parents loved Saturday Night Live, but I never, I mean, as kids, you don't really connect with it. There's nothing for you to connect with there. But them doing it for kids with all that was just, it unlocked something in me. It made me start looking at acting, which is how I met Alex. But it really, it felt like it opened up a new realm of things for kids. Um, yeah, and then of course everything that spawned off of that. So Keenan and Kel and everything that came after that. It was Nickelodeon was a staple in my household. And I'm love that you keep having me back to talk about it.
Love to have you here. What about the rest of the Splat crew? What were some of your favorites? Obviously, we know Space Cases for Kat and Wienerville for Manny and Shelby Woo for Jordy, but I know there's more. So what else did you guys really love?
I wasn't a fan of the syndicated programs. Like for some reason, just I didn't connect with Looney Tunes, but like I connected with Rugrats and Doug. So like all the original programming was what I had, tuned into more. Doug for sure, Rugrats, a lot of the Snick shows, Saturday night, like that was appointment television for me. So Clarissa and Alex Mack, all that, Space Cases, obviously, Are You Afraid of the Dark? And then even sort of into like 97, 98, where you get Keenan and Kel, Alan Strange, a lot of the live action original programming, like the dramas, I guess, quote unquote dramas for kids. And a lot of them had like that sci-fi twist to them. I enjoyed. But yeah, if I had to pick like a favorite block or whatever, Snick block for me.
Yeah, aside from Wienerville, I really enjoyed yeah, Doug was actually a good one, but I connected better with the Rugrats. There's just something about the animation style that I really loved, and just you can watch that again as an adult and just laugh at the parents because you can connect so much with them. So it's like it's so weird how it's a generational thing where it's like when they're the babies, you connect that when you're a kid, but then when you're an adult, you can watch that. Oh wow, do I say that sometimes? Am I making pudding at 2 a.m.? Like, is that
Yeah,
the meme? Yeah. It happens.
Or the meme they put out about the ages of the parents.
Yes, I'm just gonna say they're younger than we are now.
I saw that recently, and I was like, oh,
it blew my mind. I'm like, wow, okay, they seem a lot older.
Discovery.
Of course, you have Kablam too. I just love the different shorts by all the different animators. When I was young, I wanted to be a cartoonist, so that helped out so much. Just seeing all the inner workings on how the cartoons were done, how they moved so fluent. Oh, geez, the same thing with Rocco's Modern Life. I love that show
everything
too.
looked different. Like nothing looked the same. You got so much exposure to so many different kinds of art looking at it that way. It was just, it's so good.
That's what got me to just want to draw and paint. And sadly, it's not a career, but I get to do it, and it's like it's fun just to do like as a hobby, and it gives me a lot of artistic release, and it's great. Also, I have to call out the Pete and Pete shorts, the As Our School Bus Turns, Between Mr. Fear's Ears. Those were just the most articulate collection of anything I've ever seen on TV. And just like we mentioned earlier, Inside Out Boy. And What's Eating, what's the one where it's like the people living inside this kid while he's eating stuff,
Yes.
I forgot the name of that short, but I'm sure there'll be a text underneath the bottom here, but it's a really great short if no one's seen it yet. But those little bits of awkward and different.
Inside Eddie Johnson.
Inside Eddie Johnson.
Okay, Inside Eddie Johnson. Those different and articulate styles, that's what always connected me, because I'm attracted to weird, okay? So that's just what I like. That's what Nickelodeon means to me.
I think that was our first outlet to being like, weird is okay. Weird is great. And
exactly.
like, it made you start to just make choices that you liked, as opposed to, well, this is what I'm supposed to like.
Exactly.
Society.
Yeah.
Insert the clip of Clarissa doing her weird cheerleader thing here.
Give me a W. Give me an E. Give me an I-R-G. What does it spell?
Too weird.
Now, I'm excited to hear Jordy, because Jordy is on the later cusp of 90s Nickelodeon and has more into 2000s, which is a whole different time period than what I'm used to. So, Jordy, what were some of your favorite Nickelodeon shows?
Yeah, so yeah, it's true. I did come at the later part of the 90s for a lot of the things that stood out to me. But there's also things I returned back to even earlier. It was like a new discovery for a lot of them. Especially like Finders Keepers. I never watched that on TV, but going back to it, it's just so fun, especially just really early Nick shows like that. But yeah, as a kid, Hey Arnold, obviously everybody loved Hey Arnold. I mean, Doug was so big. Are You Afraid of the Dark? I don't think I need to say that I like that. Everybody already kind of knows that from my previous work. But newer Nickelodeon stuff like the Nicktoons, as they very commonly became known. Cat Dog, I have so many great memories of Cat Dog. The TV event for Cat Dog, find out who their parents are. She's Rocket Power. I remember when I was younger, me and my cousins and my sister, we're all each Rocket Power. We had 3 boys and 1 girl, so it worked out perfectly. And of course I ended up Squid because I was the youngest. But yeah, it's just Nickelodeon went through so many eras, and it was really up until the beginning of the 2000s that like it still held on to the charm that it had in its Nicktoons. And I think a lot of that, like you guys brought up, is that each show was so stylistically different from the last that they felt like their own worlds. They felt like their own unique creations where you were just interested to see them introduce new concepts in these styles, right? Or even new mediums that you may have never seen before, right? Like stop motion, claymation. But yeah, on top of all of that, it's what was in between the shows, I think, that really made the channel on top of that. And Nick or Treat is probably my favorite thing they've ever done. But the Pick Your President, Nick Goes to Your School. There are just all these ways to get the kids involved.
Super Toy
channel.
Run.
Exactly, the Super Toy Run. Like all these things were ways that like would keep you on the channel outside of the shows, and it proved that TV doesn't just have to be a passageway for advertisements and toy sales. It can be more than that. It can be like a community for kids to come to. Not saying kids don't have that nowadays online, but it was a whole different experience back then, and the limitations that it had almost made the feelings for it stronger. So
I mean, they opened a door for kids to participate. Like I don't remember which cartoon it was. For some reason, I'm thinking it was either Cat Dog or Kablam, where they did the smell-o-vision.
Smell-o-vision.
Yeah, you had
Kablam.
the like scratch and sniff. Yeah, it was stuff like that where you not only felt, because like Geraldine said, she wanted everyone to just look like kids because they're kids. So it not only gave you that feeling of, well, I can do that, or I could write in and do that, but at the same time, like it also connected us with what was happening in real time with ways like that. And like even going into, the digital age, like I strongly remember their website as a kid and like going on there and just playing games. Like it didn't try and sell you anything. Like it was just games to go on there and play that were related to the shows that you watched. Like it was great.
Yeah,
Taking
and character
polls.
bios and polls
Yeah,
and
voting
like,
and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's truly sad that with Flash Player and like, I mean, I think you can still do some of the Shockwave ones, but yeah, a lot of
Micromedia. I
R.I.P.
remember
Flash
those.
Player.
Yes.
And for me, some of my favorite shows that when I was around for Nickelodeon at the time, but much of it you all had touched on because I loved. Obviously, we've talked about Roundhouse, but I like that more as an adult, which is a common theme with the Splat Attack crew. We found far much more appreciation for it as an adult, but I loved Doug. And I loved Ren and Stimpy. They are my two favorite Nicktoons for two opposite, very, very opposite reasons. Figure It Out is my favorite Nick game show, which, if you are one of my Gakoids, you would know that from our top 5 game shows. I love Guts. I love Figure It Out, or I love Legends of the Hidden Temple, but Figure It Out was my favorite. I love Pete and Pete, Secret World of Alex Mack, Clarissa Explains It All. Loved every single one of those. And we had mentioned earlier, one of the things that I love about Nickelodeon as a whole, which we already started talking about a bit, and I had mentioned it earlier, but I really love how it was a network as a whole, because you have like Fox Kids, and it was a block, and for a while, I mean, they really had this really cool identity. But if you really think about kids shows and the blocks back before Nickelodeon really took off, because you didn't have Fox Kids at first, but Saturday morning cartoons, that was the only time you had to really watch cartoons and things like that for us, or right after school. But the network wasn't like integrating whole blocks to entertain us. It would be the show, and then it would cut to a commercial break just selling you stuff, and then it would cut back to the show. Nickelodeon was the whole network. It did have those commercial breaks, but then they had commercials advertising their other shows, and then they would have those sweepstakes, and then they would have those shorts, those interstitials, those little interviews, and then they found ways to cross promote each other's shows by having actors from Clarissa on Wienerville and on Nick Arcade, and then on other shows, and they did the same thing with other shows.
Wild and Crazy Kids too. So yeah.
Are You Afraid of the Dark? Yeah.
Well, and I mean, even along those lines, not only did they have a whole network for kids, but they had a network at varying times for different ages of kids. Like they looked at, okay, adults, whatever, like kids are watching our show. We need things for young kids. We need things for teenagers. Like everything was so well thought out, and it just, it's no wonder that it did as well as it did.
We were saying how like the shows are very different from each other, and yet they somehow or just have this very cohesive branding in that, like, yeah, it's a mishmash of stuff, but it was all integrated so very well, and it was genius.
I mean, where it's like where you just look at Clarissa Explains It All, or you look at Rugrats, that won't air on any other network than Nickelodeon, right? Like they have their own identity.
Yeah.
Like you won't see that on PBS or anything like that, right? So
well, and even from just being like a young girl's standpoint, like they were the first people to really do a female-led show, and she wasn't a princess, or she wasn't like a rich girl. Like these were just everyday girls in supernatural settings, or it was just. And like I said earlier, the families, like with Rugrats being one of their first shows, Chucky's mom, not having a mom and just having a dad. And then, going into Hey Arnold, he lives with his grandparents. Like you got to see so many different family dynamics. It taught you that, on top of it's okay to be weird and quirky, like embrace who you are. But, everybody's different, but everybody's the same. Like it was just so many deep lessons there that I don't even know that they were realizing they were teaching. And
yeah, 100%. And in a lot of ways, they were carrying the torch for a lot of the other children's networks. Like they were setting the standard. And oftentimes you would find Disney, coming after them, trying to copy their shows, right? Even taking their shows like Doug, or making, you know, clones of their shows like with Pepper Ann, right? Like trying to recreate that formula. But
I believe Geraldine Laybourne had a hand in that when she went over to Disney and then started the One Saturday Morning.
One Saturday Morning.
And I,
awesome block, by the way.
and
So good.
I'm sure Doug, because there's you get a lot of people who Nickelodeon fans who, oh no, the turncoat, like, come on. Geraldine Laybourne went over there to make a difference with with Disney the way she had with Nickelodeon, and
Doug's mother took him with her.
You can't fault that.
children.
You can't fault
Exactly.
that. And he had even said that he had more freedoms to be able to do the things that he wanted to do more of over with Disney, and you can't fault that. You just can't.
Money, man, it is what it is.
Yeah, and with what you were saying, Kat, with like they had this cohesiveness despite being so different, and I think what it was is that, you know, it didn't matter what you were or what you looked like, as long as you were like earnest about what you were trying to do, and the honesty.
Be a good human being.
Yeah, respect, and yeah, you are valid as you are. Come as you are.
Exactly. And being genuine in the product, right? Like the product isn't trying to be manipulative. It's not trying to rip off somebody else's thing that they're doing, right? They all had this unique earnestness to them where they were, you know, wearing their self on the sleeve, their heart on their sleeve, right? And a lot of Disney shows, you know, there's like this level of, you know, kind of artificiality with them. And with Nickelodeon, you never really felt that artificiality back then. It always kind of felt earnest. And not saying Disney shows aren't great. Like I love Recess. I love Lizzie McGuire. There's lots of good there. No due in part to Geraldine.
They had an equation to them. Like Disney was much more methodical in things, whereas I feel like Nick was really like the artistic version. Like release a whole bunch of artists in a room and have them teach kids lessons and connect with kids, and it's like great.
And that was something that I really liked what Nickelodeon did, because both Kat and I, when we had the chance to talk with Mitchell Kriegman, he had said that Geraldine Laybourne had the instruction of, it's okay to make mistakes. It's not okay to not take risks. That's what he had told us. And I like that mentality whenever, especially because they were trying new things. And she had said earlier, they tried everything. And I love that not only were they trying to make interesting programming for kids and things that are relatable to kids, but they were trying to teach us about ourselves at the same time. And we had started to mention earlier, I love how they were doing. I didn't like it as a kid, but I know that there are others who did, Kylie being one of them, with Nick News. I didn't like Nick News. I know a lot of people who didn't like Nick News, and for the longest time, I just thought, "Ooh, no one likes Nick News." But whenever I started getting into the '90s Nickelodeon circuit, I found there's quite a few, far more than I had ever really expected, who really got a lot from this. And I had mentioned to the crew earlier, they had kids court that were teaching them about the judicial system. They have Big Help, which we had referenced earlier, and Kids Pick the President, and even it's far more more of the entertaining pop culture circuit, but Kids Choice Awards, they were giving kids an opportunity for their voices to be heard and that their opinions are valid, even though they are minors. It's their world too, and they were going to grow up, and here we are now in charge of this world and what we need to do with it. And I like that they realize we have so many children who are tuning in and watching, and not only are we curious about how they feel at the end of watching our programs, but what are we doing with it? And how can we take what we're doing and take our audience and impact them for the future? And no other network does that, not before or since. And even Nickelodeon lost that. And a lot of that was because of Gerry.
The thing I love about it, though, is like it just because of just how artistically free it was. Everything was very subtle. Like nothing was shoved down your throat. Like the lesson was not, you weren't beat over the head with the lesson. It was essentially like lead by example. And it's like, oh man, is this a situation you've ever gotten in? Okay, well, you know, this character did that too. And this is how, you know, you apologize or you know, you admit, like, and you keep going. Like but it wasn't like, let's stop and learn this lesson. It was just leading purely by example.
Yeah, is learning through a story is what I got the most value out of. I mean, sure, like there was for the younger kids, we had Nick Jr. and some of the more educational programming, and even Nick News might fall under the educational programming header, I guess. But I learned a lot from the stories and the characters in the fictional narrative. So it's like, this is a slice of life. Like, okay, let me follow this character's journey. And it was always very respectful of the kids. And I keep saying it validated, but it did. It validated their experiences, and in doing so, validated some of mine. And it made, you know, seeing representation on screen. I was very, you know, pretty sheltered kid, but just seeing the different types of families and different cultures represented on TV, it's like, oh, that's a thing that exists. That's okay. And then I meet people in the world who are like that. And it's like, okay, yes, they're a person. I treat them with respect. That's, you know, seeing it on screen and then emulating it in real life. And like Clarissa made it, and Alex Mack too, and Pete, you know, made it okay for girls and boys to just be friends.
To be friends and to just, you know, if you want to like things that are labeled as boy things, go for it. Like, go play sports, go climb trees, you know? But like, I think Alex and I had talked about it before, like what you touched on was seeing things that you don't normally see, or like things that are not familiar to you, and just that cultural exposure to us at such a young age, rather than a lot of networks that were very like, what's very PC, like, let's, you know, what people expect to see, don't rock the boat. And then Nickelodeon did it and like didn't even draw attention to it. It was just there immediately. Like the one I always get taken back to is Hey Arnold. Like, Hey Arnold, you saw so many different people from so many different places. And like, I grew up in the suburbs of Southern Indiana. I don't know what city life is like. Now I live in a bigger city, but still, you know, it's like things that I wouldn't have been exposed to in my everyday life, I was. So then when I was exposed to them as a child, I didn't even bat an eye. I was like, oh yeah, of course.
This is like, Hey Arnold, I'm used to this.
Yeah, like I saw that.
Yeah, like,
It's
what would it be
my
like
friend
to grow
lives
up in
with
this
his
city?
grandparents,
Yeah.
just like on Hey Arnold. Then that's a thing that happens. So okay,
their neighbor is from another country. Like, you know, it's just like,
you could just play baseball over there in that abandoned
go
building.
play in the
It's like-
street.
Yeah,
like,
everybody
that
from
was the
different
only
cultures
thing I
can play
connected
together in
with.
the street.
Was
But
like,
there's
we played in the
nothing
street.
wrong with that.
No.
Yeah.
And there was a
Yeah.
lot of like thought into like, you know, like culture and education. Like Wild Thornberries was, you know, a passageway to teach you about animals that you may have never heard of and how they act, right? Or, you know, you have Are You Afraid of the Dark just introducing you to like horror and stuff at a young age. To,
Like scary stories can be fun.
Exactly.
You know?
Like these, you know, archetypes that you'll discover more and more as you grow and get older and read larger and harder literature, right? And it's just so great how they treated kids and like people, and not as just a thing to sell a product to or a toy to. And that
I
shows
felt like they were on my level. Sorry, go ahead. They were on my level, but they didn't talk down to me. Like it wasn't like, you are a kid, I am presenting this to you, a child. It was just like, here's your experience on TV. Yes, that is my experience
Here's some
on
information.
TV. Yeah.
You don't feel like you're being talked to by an adult
Yeah.
when they're saying, you know,
Yeah.
oh, adults, you know, stink. And, you know, what is it about kids? Like, oh, you know, who wants to hear adults yapping? Nobody, you know, this is all about kids here, right?
I don't.
Like,
I'm
they used-
almost 35.
They used to have this commercial where it's like, if your parents want to watch Nickelodeon, send them to their rooms.
Exactly.
Stuff like
right?
that.
There's always a lot of that, or like fighting over the remote, right? Like with
Yeah.
the telekinetic TV fighting.
All right. Well, we do have. I mean, there's so much that we can keep going, but if we do, we'll be here all night.
We can go forever.
That's fair.
But
There's a reason we have a podcast about this stuff. It's just we love
Yes.
talking about it.
There,
You invite me, and every time I come in, I'm going, don't talk so much. Don't talk so much. You talk too much. And then by the end of it, I feel like I've just led us on all kinds of journeys off the beaten path.
But that's the best part
and that's
about
what we
this.
do.
The best part.
This part was
It's
just
the
full.
ADHD brain. It's just everywhere.
That's part of why we have this discussion on the second half, because the first half is very coordinated, very all right. Let's pick Geraldine Laybourne's brain and learn more about this. And the second half was just let's just chit chat about what we loved about Nickelodeon as we grew up. So no, it's perfectly fine. That's what's
Also, so many
what we wanted.
memories keep getting unlocked for me, which I unfortunately, due to being on a medication for a prolonged time, have memory issues now. Nothing like huge, but like just the little stuff I don't remember as often. So it's like every time I'm here, or like Alex is like, hey, I'm going to bring you on for this show. And I'm like, oh, I got to do my research. Like I got to come in. And so I'll watch stuff and it's just like unlocked. And I'm just like, oh, it's so good to just live in it a little bit.
Yeah. It's finding those little moments that spark joy that you remember. And it's just, it's down the rabbit hole for sure.
Yeah.
Well, with this being a special episode, we have a special game that the crew may or may not have been cheating while I was away from the screen. But we are going to do our probably one time only game, Name That Slime. So for this game, this is very, very much just a hodgepodge of different Nickelodeon things. And it's just, what do you remember? It's not like a big trivia based, well, I mean, it is trivia based, but it's not a right, wrong thing. It's just, what do you remember? And that's where this is coming from. And there is some slime-based questions, since it is called Name That Slime, and slime was a huge part of Nickelodeon. I mean, it's right up there. They incorporated it with so many things. So, starting with, for our first question, for 1 point, what show first introduced slime? Cat's hand. Cat.
You can't do that on television.
You can't do that on television. Absolutely right.
Ding, ding, ding.
All right, so this next one, there were 3 that I can recall. How many colors, I should say, what are the different colors of slime that we've seen in Nickelodeon? Kylie.
I remember 2 of them.
Okay.
I know there was green, obviously. And I know there was pink.
And Manny, do you know what the third one was?
Those were the 2 I was gonna say.
You want to throw a color out there and take a wild guess?
Yellow!
I don't think there was a yellow slime.
That would have made the shows very different.
I think there was some yellow crowning glory over on What Would You Do, but I don't think they had a yellow slime. Cat?
Orange.
Orange? I don't think they had an orange either. They did have a blue.
That's what I was going to guess. I think I saw it on Double Dare. I remember there being blue slime on an episode of Double Dare.
And they had it on... you can't do that on television.
Oh, yeah.
Because Christine McGlade was having that. They dumped green on her, and she said, well, at least it's not blue, and then dumped on her. Well, at least it's not pink, and they dumped it on her. And she said, okay, striped. And then they dumped all 3 all at once.
Oh, I had the opportunity to get slimed as a kid because we went down to Florida and toured the studio, and I was the shyest little kid. Like I was an only child at that point, like so shy, and like I had the opportunity to, and you just had to go down there, and I chickened out. And adult Kylie is like, you could have done it. It would have been so good, but that's okay. I respect your decision.
Well, our next question, and again, we're probably not going to remember all of them, and that's perfectly fine. But how many different iterations of GAC can you recall? Cat?
They have names?
Oh yeah, there was several different
there
kinds.
was regular gack. I remember there was okay, so regular gack, solar gack.
Yeah.
With color change.
Uh-huh.
They had a smell my gack, I think, that's the scented ones.
They did.
They had a glow in the dark one. Was it just called gack in the dark, or was it glow in the dark gack, or what was it called?
It was called gack in the dark.
Okay. Those are all the ones that I remember that were gack specific.
There were 3, and this is across the whole gamut of Nickelodeon history, so it's not just 90s. But does anybody else know any other? There are 3 others that I found.
I think there was a glitter gack at one point.
They didn't call it glitter gack, but they called it galactic gack.
Galactic gack, yes.
Nice.
I had the there was one that came in a rocket ship container, and there was like 3 small separate ones. I remember that one. That's the one I had. Jeez. Is there
I'm
any
at a
left?
disadvantage. Gack
Yep,
was
there's 2
not.
more.
Gack was not in my household. I think
Wasn't mine either.
my mom tried to persuade me with other toys.
Well, I accidentally mushed it into my dad's lazy boy chair, so that was the end of that.
Yeah,
I
I got
got
in
the-
trouble with Floam, so yeah.
Yeah, the messiest I ever got was Play-Doh, and it was only at the table.
Right. Does anybody have any final guesses for the last 2? So the last 2, we had Super Stretch Gack, which was after our time period. And then they had Make Your Own Gack.
Oh.
That's cool.
Make your own gack. So was it like color pigments you could add to like?
I think so.
white
so.
Like
gack?
confetti and stuff you can put in it.
Like a
the-
slime lab?
Like the slime labs now
Yeah, like one
that
of the
people
slime
do.
labs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nickelodeon was the beginning of slime.
That was
Well done, Nickelodeon.
Exactly.
Bridging generations, man.
All right, and this next one, also a point for each one that you can recall. Outside of GAC, there was a lot of other substance-type toys, merchandise that Nickelodeon released. What else can you recall within that vein? Manny said one of them just a minute ago.
Floam was the only one I remember.
That's the one I remember.
Cat?
Okay, so Smud,
Smud. Mm-hmm.
Floam, Gack, Slime.
Slime, yep.
Those are all the ones that I remember.
Okay. Anybody else? There were a couple others.
There was a magic sand one, but I can't remember what the name of it was. Off the top of my
I'll give it
head.
to you. It was Zand.
Squand?
Zand, yes.
Oh.
With a Z, yes.
I remember they'd Squand and Zan. Oh, okay, yeah.
I remember Squand. And yeah, you would put that in the aquarium, and then when you take it out, it
It was
dries.
dry.
Yeah. Science
blew my mind as a kid. Honestly, it still
Newtonian
blows my
physics.
mind now.
There are 3 others. Anybody know these?
Not without cheating, no.
So the other ones, this one was late 90s, but it was Goose.
Goose. Yeah, there was the goose.
Okay.
Never heard of that one.
And they also had Thing Maker, where you could make different monsters with some of the stuff that they used
Oh,
for
like the monster head things at the time.
Wow.
And
Okay.
the last one, which is more of a recent thing that they put out, but it's kind of their answer to Silly String, but it's called Spit Smatter. I've never
I don't
heard
like
of
that. I don't like the sound
We're
of that.
so
Yeah, I
good
feel
at
like
gross
that.
things.
That is short
Goose
shelf
is
life.
fine. Spits matter, no.
No,
Yeah.
I draw the line at spit.
Yeah.
All right, and this next one, they're going to be worth 2 points each. There have been a lot of game shows, and there is a lot of game show hosts across the tenure of Nickelodeon. I'm not looking for the game shows, I'm looking for the hosts. How many game show hosts can you remember? Now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start picking, you only get one answer at a time, so that way somebody else gets a chance. So Kylie's hand was first. Who's one that you can think of?
We'll just go big with Mr. Mark Summers.
Mark Summers, absolutely. All right, Mark. Cat.
Summer Sanders.
Summer Sanders, absolutely right. Who else? Manny?
Phil Moore.
Jordy? Do you know one?
Oh, yeah. Great. Kirk Fogg.
Kirk Fogg. All right, just one. All right. Kat, we'll go back to you. Who else do you know?
Right. Oh, Donnie Jeffcoat.
Donnie Jeffcoat, absolutely.
No, I was gonna say Omar Gooding, but that was
Yeah.
you know, Wild and
Yeah.
Crazy. Did that
Yeah.
count?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
counts.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, you got it. Jordy?
We say Mike O'Malley yet? Does anyone?
We've
say
not said Mike O'Malley.
Okay, Mike O'Malley, of course. 2 for 1 because 2 shows.
All right. Kat, back to you.
More Wild and Crazy Kids stuff. Annette Chavez.
Annette Chavez.
We're probably missing some really obvious
I
ones.
know there's one I'm missing. Who
There's
am I
more.
missing?
I'm gonna go peek while you guys think.
There's one more for Wild and Crazy Kids.
I don't know his name.
Jessica.
I see his face.
Jessica Gaines.
Jessica Gaines.
I will openly admit I cheated on this one, but this one blows my mind. John Cena?
Yep, John Cena
Wait,
was
what?
host. He was
No
he was out
way.
there for 2 shows.
He was
This
a little baby in the 90s, so it's like...
No, this is the whole tenure of Nickelodeon.
Yeah,
so the laters too.
Yeah.
There was a game show called Keep It Spotless, where the kids would have to wear white shirts and the whole set was white, and then almost like Splat, whatever that game, Splatoon, where kids would have to throw paint and then they would try to get the paint on them and less on the set. And then they had a rebooted series of Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader on Nickelodeon. And John Cena was host for that.
Well, I have one. Jeff Sudson.
Yep.
He also did a show out of his garage where he had Mark Summers, Kirk Fogg, and Phil Moore. If you haven't checked it out, that's a great video to watch.
That's awesome.
You are correct, sir.
What did Jay Farrow do?
There was another newer one called Unfiltered. I'm less familiar with that one. There was also
I'm about to go down a Nickelodeon
and there
wiki
were-
rabbit hole.
There were 2 other hosts for Double Dare other than Mark Summers.
I don't know who did the 2000s version,
Yeah.
but I don't know his name.
Do you guys know the newer one?
There's a new one?
Yeah, the one 2018.
Oh,
that
actually, I haven't tuned into the 2018
There's a new
one.
game?
Yeah, there was a 2018 Double Dare.
Actually, you know what? Off the top of my head, I think it was somebody relevant. Who was it?
Yeah, it was an influencer on Instagram.
Yeah. No, I can't remember the name.
Yeah,
I can't remember
I'm
the
cheating
name.
and I don't
But I
know.
remember there's like they had some sort of they were just like nobody had heard of before.
Liza Koshy was her
Okay.
name.
Oh,
And
I was about to say that.
no, you are not.
Yeah, I wasn't.
And
Oh, look at her. She's so cute.
And we had 3 other game show hosts who were on Splat Attack. We had Lou Schneider from Make the Grade, we had Skip Lackey from Think Fast, and we had Wesley Ure from Finders Keepers. And there's a ton of others because you also have there was a game show called The Crystal Maze. There was a new host for My Family's Got Guts. You had Slime Time Live. So there's quite a few others, but I'm not going to go
Nick
through and list
Gas
all.
host, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not going to go through and list all those because that'd be for a boring thing.
Yeah.
But going with our last few questions, 2 points for this one, and I had to have a little backup for this one. Which game show, well, not game show, just which show did not use slime? You can't do that on television. Double Dare. What would you do? Wienerville. We'll figure it out. Manny?
Wienerville.
Wienerville did
Things-
use slime. I mean,
They called it special topping.
They called it the special topping, but it was still green slime.
Okay.
So, but there was one that did. Like, Kylie,
What would you do?
what would you do? There was no green slime anywhere, and what would you do? It was
Wasn't
a
it
Double
all
Dare.
like?
Yeah.
Just pie.
Yeah, it was all just
Whipped
like
cream.
whipped cream.
Just
Yeah.
pies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, never did I more want to just go dive into a giant bowl of whipped cream. Now as an adult, I'm like, that's going to be sticky and gross. But, you know, as a 12-year-old, I was like, I want to go do that.
Absolutely.
As a kid, I truly believed they were banana cream pies, and people
Yeah.
were making full pies for this.
Yes.
Only to realize that it's clearly just whipped cream in a pie tin.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Oh,
our-
they
realize
did so
that either.
much.
Our last 2 questions, I went through and found the top 5. of these two different categories. So you get, if you get number one, you get 5 points. If you get the second one, you get 4 points, and so on all the way down. We started looking into this a little bit in a previous conversation in Splat Chats, but I had to look for the tenure of Nickelodeon. So this is not just 90s, it's the whole tenure. Which top 5 shows have the most episodes? This includes spin-offs. Like, I lumped them all together.
Okay.
Cap?
Sponge Who Shall Not Be Named has to be up there.
Sponge is number 1.
SpongeBob,
with 272 episodes.
That's unnecessary.
Goes on way too long.
I never got into it, and then everybody seemed to double down once we hit adulthood, and I was like, I can't. I'm sorry.
So that's our number 1 episode, our number 1 show.
I only liked the first 3 seasons. That was
Jordy?
Yeah.
Okay, if this includes Nick Jr. shows, which I don't know if it does.
It does.
Dora the Explorer?
Yeah.
Dora the Explorer is not one of the top 5.
Oh, wow, I would have thought that been on.
Dora's still going, though.
It's in the top 10, but
Okay.
it's not in the top. It's not in the top, it's not in the top
okay.
5.
Well, then if it's not Dora, but yeah.
Blue's Clues then.
Blue's
has
Clues.
to be up there.
It is the number 4. It has 246 episodes.
I think I have one more, but I don't want
Rugrats?
to steal them all.
Yeah.
Rugrats. There you
I was
go,
going to say
Jordy.
Rugrats. That's
So,
exactly. Yeah.
Right now, this is I'm really surprised at this, to be perfectly honest, because right now SpongeBob has 272 episodes. Rugrats. This includes the original. This includes All Grown Up, and this includes the
All
reboot.
spin-offs. Yeah.
Is exactly stripe for stripe the same number, 272 episodes. One more Rugrats episode will put it over the top of SpongeBob, and it will reclaim its title.
Well, they
Come
still
on,
make
Nickelodeon,
Rugrats
one more.
episodes.
Come
They
on,
still
one
make
more
SpongeBob.
They
too.
still make SpongeBob, yeah. So
Keep going. Don't stop.
it's neck and neck with the two of them right now.
It's a raise. That's hilarious.
So we got
Now I
2
have
more.
a new investment in Nickelodeon programming.
So there are 2 more shows that have the top,
Okay.
and I will say both shows have been referenced today.
All that?
Are they
all that
animated?
Anywhere near? Okay, that.
Neither of these 2 are animated. I will say it may have some animated segments, but overall, no, it is not animated. I will also say one of them is old, and one of them is a game show.
One of them's a game show.
Oh. Is Double Dare?
It's not Double Dare.
No.
Is it?
Is it Figure It Out?
It is Figure It Out.
Oh, it's Figure It Out. Okay.
Really?
233 episodes.
More than
Wow.
Double Dare.
Double Dare,
show.
Double Dare was in the 200s, but not. It was like 233 or something like that. No, not 2. It was like 215 or something to that. I forget how much, but
I would have never thought that.
Figure It Out
Wow.
just beat it
Okay.
out.
It feels like I watched it all the time. Like, that's the only reason I got to that point. And I was like, what did I used to see all the time, even when I wasn't expecting it? Figure It Out.
Once it got to
Yeah.
Wild Style, they showed so much of that.
Yeah.
Like, I remember that.
So our last one is our older, and it's older Nickelodeon show,
And it's not animated.
and it is one. It does have. I think it does have some animation in it, but overall, it's not. And I will
Can't
say
do
it's
that?
nope. I will say it is also one that Geraldine had mentioned.
Clarissa?
Nope. Older than that.
Oh, no.
Older than Clarissa.
Pinwheel.
Pinwheel.
Oh, yeah.
I just think about it like a channel.
260.
Wow.
Man.
All right, and our last question, and we had actually talked about this during a live stream that we had over on Patreon, looking at the Thanksgiving Day parade. And there have been quite a few characters that were balloons. I went for the top 5, but there's actually 6, because one of them is a tie. So there are 6 Nickelodeon characters across the whole tenure who have been multiple times for the parade. So who can name them? Kylie, I think I saw you first.
I can name one. I know Dora.
Dora was on there 5 times.
So many times.
Kylie. Kat?
Blue.
Blue was on there 4 times. No, 8. I was looking at 4 points. But yeah, Blue was on there 8 times. Blue is our second most appearances at the Thanksgiving Day Parade. Dora is our second.
Okay.
Dora was actually one of our ties for second. Jordy.
Okay, I think I don't want to say the one I know that probably is because I don't want to talk about that character, but I'm gonna say
also didn't mention that character.
yeah. Chucky Finster, I think, got it once, right? Did he not, or was it a different Rugrat?
I will just say Rugrats because it was Chucky, Tommy,
Was it
and
Reptar?
Spike.
And Spike. Yeah.
No,
Oh
it
no,
was
you're
Reptar.
right.
It was
I
Chucky
remember
and
the
Tommy.
Chucky
and
one.
Spike.
Yeah.
And that was also our tie with Dora. So they are
Okay.
our 4th. They're number 4.
Rugrats is
Kat.
powerhouse.
Oh, I feel like the sponge that shall not be named has to be up there.
That one is a
Sea creatures.
whopping 19 frickin' times.
Again,
And
unnecessary.
it's still going. Our last 2, I will say, one is in the 2000s and one is current.
Oh, is there? I don't know any of the characters, but is there a Paw Patrol one?
I'll give it to you.
Okay.
Yes, it is Chase from Paw Patrol.
On Nickelodeon? That's so great. I don't watch television anymore.
I saw it when I was going through Paramount Plus. I was like, oh, they've got Paw Patrol on here.
And for our last 1 point, it is our 2000s Nickelodeon show.
Face.
Okay, 2000
Yes,
Nickelodeon.
it's just a sheet.
It's just.
I can't believe they didn't have a Reptar one. Dang.
I know.
Yeah,
There should've
missed
been.
opportunity, guys.
Was it Rocket Power?
It was not Rocket Power.
Oh man.
And
Trying to
I
think
will
of, like,
also
the
say this
biggest
had a
ones.
movie.
Wild Thornberries.
Not Wild Thornberries.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Had a movie,
It did have a movie.
but it wasn't.
Animated,
Cat Dog, is
yes.
It was not Cat Dog. Would you say, Callie?
It's animated, yes.
It is animated. But a bit
Beavers?
a bit different. No, a bit different animation.
Oh.
Not the traditional hand drawn.
Right, 3D or something.
And I believe it was their first of this type.
Okay, I think I
Jimmy
know.
Neutron!
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
Jimmy
I just said
Neutron.
it.
What'd you say?
Oh, yes.
Neutron, yeah. It hit me at the same time. I'm like, of course,
It
Jimmy
hit
Neutron.
all of you at the same time.
Totally forgot that show.
I can't believe I didn't think about Jimmy Neutron.
I know, it was a big deal.
Got a blast.
And
Yeah, really.
And Carl.
The Fairly Odd Parents never made a
Carl.
balloon either.
Oh, wow.
going along our score system, I believe Kat has taken that away with a whopping 33 points.
I feel like that's not fair because SpongeBob was answered
Yeah,
twice.
it was a
They got
gimme.
a
It
lot
was
of
at least
points.
two of them.
And no one wants to say it, and you guys were all thinking it. So I concede who was second place. I give my crown to you. whoever
Second place,
was.
that was Jordy.
Oh, really?
Yay, Jordy won!
I actually know some stuff. I'm not all dumb.
But that being said, this has been an amazing episode to do. I said this before we started the episode. We were talking with Geraldine Laybourne. What an honor it was, and the whole crew had to show out to have the opportunity to see her and talk with her. And we've heard so many great things about her from so many of our guests, and it's been it was one of the greatest experiences that I've had doing this show. And that's not a slight, because we've had a lot of wonderful experiences doing this show, but this is going to be top echelon the white whale. I don't know if I'll ever emotionally be able to top that. But I'm very blessed that I have gotten to share this experience with these people, because these guys make it continually special for me. So thank all of you for being here for this episode. Thank all of you for tuning into this episode and remembering why we love Nickelodeon to begin with. And with that being said, for our closing question for the episode, what program would you put on the air if you were in charge of Nickelodeon? You can write to us via email at splatattack2021@gmail.com. Feel free to message us on Instagram, Facebook, any one of those socials where I'm constantly on them. Just look for Splat Attack Podcast. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do that. Comment down below, all that good stuff. Interact with us wherever you can find us on social media. Until next time, can you guys help me rebuild the studio again? This time, it'll be done right. Geraldine gave me some blueprints for the old Nickelodeon Studios building so that we can replicate it.
Aye, aye, co-captain, lieutenant, and commander. But really, do some deep cleaning before we replicate it.
Does anyone know where the slime squeegees went?
I'll see if I can find them, but I don't know. Oh! Ah! I forgot!
Looks like we really need them now.
Well, thank you, Miss Geraldine Laybourne, for making our slime-filled childhoods absolutely splat-tastic. Manny, you probably need to go get yourself cleaned up before we start working on before we get to the next episode. But until then, splat you later, everybody.
Splat you later.
Splat you later.
Look at my glasses,
man.
Oh man, it is taking you over.
Everywhere. You got it.
Okay. Take care.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.
Bye.
Bye bye.
I need a minute.
I
Or
love
12.
coming on this podcast.
Oh God.
My brain is still buffering.
Oh my God.
Alex, are you all right?
Hey,
Yeah,
remember
Alex,
that
what's up?
talk we had the other day? And
Yeah, I don't know if you can
about
see
how
it, but my hand is shaking.
You're
My adrenaline's
shaking.
through the roof.